to talk today about carpool accidents and who's liable when another parent causes the crash. Carpools are a convenient part of daily life for many families, especially during the school year. Parents share driving responsibilities, kids enjoy time with their friends, and busy schedules become much more manageable. But what happens when something goes wrong? If a carpool ends in a crash and your child's injured, or if you're the driver and someone else's child is involved, liability becomes an immediate concern. Carpool accidents do raise difficult questions about fault, insurance coverage, and legal responsibility. Unlike typical single passenger commutes, carpools can involve multiple people, varying insurance policies, and sometimes even verbal agreements that impact liability. Here's what you need to know if you're involved in a carpool accident in Missouri, particularly in the Kansas City area. First, you need to understand liability in a carpool accident. Liability in any car accident case typically comes down to main legal principle of negligence. The person who caused the accident by acting carelessly or failing to follow traffic laws is usually held responsible for the damages. In the context of a carpool, this could be the parent driving the carpool vehicle, another driver on the road, or a combination of both. If you're a parent whose child was injured in a carpool crash, your ability to recover damages depends on who was at fault and the type of insurance coverage available. So when a carpool driver is at fault, if a parent's driving the carpool and they were negligent, for example, by speeding, texting while driving, or failing to yield, they may be held liable for the injuries that occur. This includes injuries to both other children in the vehicle and damage to other vehicles involved. In Missouri, the at-fault driver's liability insurance is typically the first place victims will turn for compensation. And Missouri does require drivers to carry at least a minimum amount of liability coverage. This typically looks like $25,000 per person and no more than 50,000, I'm sorry, for the entire accident. However, if there's serious injuries, especially ones involving children, the injuries can exceed the limits really quickly. So can you sue another parent? Legally, yes. If your child was injured due to the other parent's careless driving, you may pursue a personal injury claim against them. While this can be uncomfortable, particularly if the family is part of your social circle, it may be necessary to cover for your medical bills, long-term care, or other costs. In many cases, you're not going after the parent personally. Oftentimes, we're pursuing a claim against their auto insured carrier. It's worth noting that many claims do settle outside of court as well. When another driver is at fault, sometimes the carpool driver is not the one who caused the accident. For example, another driver might have run a red light or failed to yield and struck the carpool vehicle. In that case, the at-fault driver's insurance would be responsible for covering injuries to everyone in the carpool. This includes medical expenses, lost wages, pain and suffering. If at the at-fault driver, if the at-fault driver has low or even no insurance coverage, then families affected may need to turn to their own uninsured or underinsured coverage, which is mandatory in Missouri, at least the uninsured motorist coverage. Many times parents do have underinsured motorist coverage just as an elective on their policy. This coverage may be included through their driver's own policy or through the parent of the injured children. Shared fault in Missouri. There is comparative fault in Missouri. The Missouri comparative fault system just means that if you were at some fault, that may reduce the responsibility that you have to pay out on the claim. For example, if the carpool driver is 40% at fault and the other driver is 60% at fault, that's going to reduce the proportionate amount of financial responsibility that each driver has. Even if you're partially at fault, you can still recover damages, but the amounts is going to be reduced by the level of responsibility you bear in causing the accident. So what about verbal agreements or waivers? Some parents assume a casual agreement. Sure, I'll drive your kid today, they may say, and that may carry no legal weight. Others wonder whether informal carpool arrangements come with implied waivers of liability. In most cases, verbal agreements don't waive a driver's legal duty to operate their vehicle safely. Even if there's a long-standing agreement between the families, the law holds drivers accountable for negligence. There's generally no protection from liability just because the arrangement was friendly or informal. Insurance coverage questions, though. There may be personal auto insurance. Most personal auto insurance policies do cover carpool driving, especially if it's not done for profit. If you're just simply driving kids to school or practice as a favor, not as a paid-for service, you're likely covered under your standard policy, although you'd want to check your policy specifically to make sure. If you do accept money for driving outside of just maybe shared gas costs, your insurer may view that as commercial use, and there may be some coverage issues. You may have what's called med pay coverage under your policy. If your auto policy includes medical payment coverage, they may help cover injuries for passengers in your vehicle, regardless of who's at fault. This can be especially helpful when dealing with injuries to children, as it may be immediately available, and the person who's injured may need immediate care for their injuries. Umbrella policies. Some families do carry umbrella liability policies for extra protection. These policies kick in after the standard auto insurance limits are exhausted and can be really helpful, especially when dealing with serious injuries or multiple injured parties. So, what to do if you're involved in a carpool crash? First and foremost, what you'll want to do is you want to call 911. Always report the accident. It's really helpful to have all the information in a single document. Document everything. Take photos, collect contact information, and note any traffic signs or conditions. Also, seek medical care. Children may not always show symptoms immediately. It's important to get evaluated. Exchange insurance information. Even among friends or neighbors, be sure to exchange complete information. Report the accident to your insurance company. Even if you're not the one who's at fault, it may be really important to report it timely to your insurance company. Keep records of all expenses. This can include medical bills, travel costs, and time off of work. In conclusion, carpooling can be a huge help for families, but when an accident occurs, it's important to know your rights and responsibilities. Liability in a car crash depend on who was at fault, the type of insurance coverage available, and Missouri's legal framework for negligence. If your child was injured or if you're facing claims after a carpool accident, don't wait to understand your options. Give us a shout if you need help. Thanks for tuning in.